Hey everybody, it's Caleb Crew with Caleb Crew Reports and Predicts. And tomorrow is a huge election in the United Kingdom, and that's what we're going to go over today. But if you could hit like and subscribe to view more election content, it'll be greatly appreciated. So today we're going to go over the UK general election. Then tomorrow's the election, and the day after we'll go over the results. And so it's been a topsy-turvy campaign. The Conservatives started out really strong, and lately Labor has looked like they've been slowly closing the gap, but the seat projections are all over the place. There was one, uh, it didn't go in depth, so we're not going to look at that today, but it was a focal one that had the Tories at about 24 seats. Later, we'll go into the MRP by YouGov, which is a new type of polling that they've been doing that was really accurate in 2017. That predicts a Conservative majority of 28 seats. And on electoral calculus, which is usually another good one as well, Professor Martin Baxter, we'll go over this first, has predicted a 46 seat majority by the Conservatives. So all the polls are really have decided and are in agreement that the Conservatives will get a majority. It's just what that is. Now, that's a snapshot. There could be little changes in election day, by even 0.5% of overall numbers could swing some of these constituencies. So we could still get a hung parliament, but it does look like Boris Johnson and the Conservatives will get a majority. The question is, how big would that majority be? And so if we look at here on electoral calculus, the Conservatives are predicted to get um, 348 seats. Jeremy Corbyn and Labour at 227. The Lib Dems at 13. The Green Party at 1. The Scottish Nationalist Party, which only competes in Scotland, at 41. Plaid Cymru, which is the Welsh National Party that competes only in Wales, 2. Now that's a drop from 4 last time. The DUP at 10. Sinn Féin at 6 seats. The SDLP, which is the Social Democrats and Labour Party, at 2. Now those last 3 I mentioned were all Northern Irish seats and only compete in Northern Ireland. So this is predicting a good Conservative majority, 46 seats. Now, when they talk about a majority, it's not an absolute majority. To have an absolute majority, it has to be over 326 seats. But what they're talking about, how big of a majority is a working majority. So that's more seats than all of the parties, because the Speaker of the House of Commons and his deputies don't vote, and Sinn Féin doesn't vote either. They're an Irish nationalist party, so they don't take seats in Westminster. They get elected, they just don't vote, and so that drops what a working majority actually would be. But really, when you're talking about a majority, it's all the parties except the largest party, and how many more seats that they would have than all the other parties combined. So the Conservatives are at a 46-seat majority. Now, if we go over here to the MRP, there's a lot of things that we're going to look in this poll. This poll was within 2 or 3 seats of predicting the election in 2017. A couple weeks ago, they had and I was thinking about covering it, but I ended up not. They had a MRP poll. This is from YouGov, and YouGov had a poll that had a 68-seat Conservative majority. Now it's down to a 28-seat majority. So that would put the Conservatives at 339 seats, Labor at 231, the Liberal Democrats at 15 seats, Brexit Party at 0 seats, the Green Party at a seat, SNP at 41 seats, and Plaid Cymru at 4 seats, and the others at 1. This poll does not cover Northern Ireland. But if you look at the intervals right here, this is really important. The Conservatives could get anywhere between 311 and 367 seats. Labor's most is 256, so Labor, there's no way they're going to form a majority. They can get a hung parliament, but they cannot get a majority. And so they could get a minority government or a coalition government, but not absolute majority, like the Conservatives, are on track to get. Um, if you look at the number high, that number 367, we're going to look at some seats that are on election night. We need to look at it is really see what's going on, and the results of a couple seats will help us in determining what it can look like, and maybe a key predictors of what the night will end up being. Then we're going to go down and we're going to look at the regional vote share before we go into a couple specific seats. Now, right here is this is the regional vote share, um, and the reason, and so this is just going over of each region of England how they're voting. The northeast of England, Labour's up 44, the Conservatives at 35, Brexit party's in third at 10, the Lib Dems are at 7. And the Northwest, the Labour is at 44, the Conservatives are at 36, the Brexit party's in fourth at 6, and third is the Lib Dems at 8. Now this is Northern England, and also we'll go real quick over Yorkshire and the Umber, which is tied between the Labourers and Conservatives at 40% apiece. The Lib Dems are at 8, and the Brexit party's at 7. What's really important about that's Northern England. That's the Labour heartland. That they call it the Red Wall. In America, we have the Blue Wall, the Democrat area that never got beat, and then for the Republicans, they have the South is known as the solid South. Well, in England, it's like that. The North is a solid chunk for Labour. The South is usually, except London, is pretty solid for the Conservatives. And we see that this red wall is cracking a little bit, and this is why Labour is having so much problems. Now, the East and West Midlands, the East Midlands is been a pretty good conservative area, and they're up 51 to 34. And Lib Dems are at 8, Brexit's at 2. The West Midlands has been more battleground, but the Conservatives are leading there, 49 to 36. Lib Dems are 9. This is where the Conservatives are doing really well, and where Labour, if they were going to be somewhat competitive, the North would have to look a whole lot better, and the West Midlands would have to look a lot better for them as well, and it's not. Then we'll go to the east of England. The Conservatives 54, Labour's at 27, the Lib Dems are at 14. This is where the Lib Dems in southern England and east of England, southeast, southwest England, and London. Well, London's a little different, but those other areas are really big conservative areas where actually the Lib Dems are rising up and challenging Labour in some of these areas. So if you look at the London. Now, London is a little. Well, we'll go to London after we do. Southeast shows the Conservatives 51, Labour at 24, and Lib Dems at 19. Southwest is the Conservatives at 50, Labour at 25, Lib Dems at 19. And then London, which is it's its own battleground in itself, has Labour leading at 47, the Conservatives at 31, and the Lib Dems at 15. And if the Lib Dems do good, they'll have to do well in London and east of England, southeast, and southwest. Now, Wales, this is where the Conservatives are at 34, Labour's at 43, Lib Dems are at 15, the Brexit's at 6. Plaid Cymru's at 10 points. What's so important about Wales is this is somewhere Labour won by 15 points 2 years ago in the 2017 election, and they're only up by 9, so the Conservatives have really cut into Labour. So Labour is just kind of collapsing. Now, in Scotland, it's 27 for the Conservatives, 20 for Labour, 10 for the Lib Dems, and 41 for the SNP. So this is a pretty good thing for the SNP, so it's looking good. Now we'll go into some of these big seats that we want to cover. And the first one we're going to come to is, and this is off CNN. CNN did 22 key seats. We're not going to do all of those, but we'll do a couple. So Kensington is the first one we're going to come to. This is a Labour, this is a marginal seat, or what we would call a swing seat in the U.S. And it's a swing seat, Kensington is, where where Labor barely won it. It's a very wealthy kind of seat, so the Lib Dems have actually been rising up to challenge. But this is a seat that if the Lib Dems were going to have a good night, they would need to do well in Kensington. Well, the Conservatives are only down by 2 points to Labor, so it's 36-38. So if the Conservatives end up winning Kensington, you could say that London is not all lost, and this may stabilized, but it's also a marginal seat. So it's not. It was just. It may tell you how London will go if it's one. If it's a huge switch from one way to the other. Another seat that we're going to go, since we're in the case here, is Kingswood, and Kingswood is a seat that if it's a big Remain seat, and so if Labor wins Kingswood, they're on course for a really good night. Maybe not that majority, but probably the upper crest of their range of seats they could get. It's not looking good for them. The Conservatives are 51, the Labor's 38, Lib Dems at 6. So that is not really what they want to what they wanted to hear. Now we'll go to two more seats. We have a couple more seats to go over. So next we're going to look at Sedgefield. Now Sedgefield is is in the north of England, so it's in that red wall that we were talking about, and it was a pretty big um, Labor majority 2 years ago. So they won it by 6,000 votes, which is actually pretty comfortable there. If Labor loses it, it's going to be really bad, and you could see a good Conservative night. Well, it's a really close battleground right now. It's 40 for the Conservatives, 39 for Labor, 5 for Lib Dems, and the Brexit Party's at 12 there. The Brexit Party vote is really keeping um, Labor down in some of these areas, because some of these people, well, we can't vote Tory, but we can't vote for Labor, and they're leavers, so then they go to the Brexit Party. Now, this other seat that we're going to look at, so if Sedgefield falls, that red wall can crack, and the Conservatives are probably going to get a good majority out of that, probably on track for their 28, between 28 and 40 seat majority. That could be a really good sign for that. Now, Walsall South is the next one we're going to go over. Now, this will be a very important one to watch, because Labor won it by almost 9,000 votes in 2017. Um, but if the Tories win this seat, and it looks like if on election night, if they win this seat, this is horrible news for Jeremy Corbyn, and this seat could tell you if it's going to be a Labor wipeout or not. Right now, the Tories are down by 6 points there, so Labor's at 45, the Conservatives 39, Lib Dems at 4, Brexit at 7. But if this seat goes for the Conservatives, you should expect for a huge majority to be on course, and the end of Jeremy Corbyn's political career. Most likely. Now, you can have things that may not necessarily happen, but and so those are really some seats we're going to look over. One more we're going to look over is Middlesbrough South and East Cleveland. Now, this seat was a Conservative gain in the Northeast. They only won it by 1,000 votes. But so this is a Conservative seat. But if it goes to the to Labor, you would have to say that Labor's going to have a good night. But in the recent polling, it's 53 for the Conservatives, 39 for Labor. So all signs are pointing that Labor, the seats that they need to win to have a good night, aren't good for them. And the same with the Liberal Democrats. One that we're going to look at, one is St. Ives. Now, this is a seat that is in Cornwall, which is southeast England. And it was a really close election. But 2 years ago. But if they lose, if they don't win St. Ives for the Liberal Democrats, it's going to be really bad news. And right now, there's a 6-point race. The Conservatives at 47, Labor at 8, and the Liberal Democrats at 41. If Joe Swinson and her party, that's the Liberal Democrats, can't win this seat, then you have to say that the Conservatives are on track to kind of hold off some of this Liberal Democrat surge that they were expecting in southern England. And the other one we're going to go over is Finchley and Golders Green. Now, some polling originally said that this may be a tough seat. It's a kind of a Romania area with a pretty hard Brexit guy, and that's the Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab represents here. But the Conservatives right now are at 50, the Labor 23, and the Liberal Democrats are at 27. So really what this is saying is Dominic is safe, and that even though that the Lib Dems thought that they had a chance of unseating him, that they don't. But if somehow this switches, the Conservatives are in for a world of hurt. But overall, it's looking really good for the Conservatives to get a majority. But if you look at those seats will really tell you where it could go. Especially if Walsall South, if you see that go Conservative, you know that it's a Labor wipeout. If Sedgefield goes Conservative, you have to say that it's a really good night for the Conservatives. Or if Walsall South is within a couple hundred votes, then you know that Labor's in some deep trouble. So that's just going over some of these seats. We'll be back. I'll be back to break down these results. I have a Facebook page, Caleb Curry Reports and Predicts. You can go there as well, and we may be posting some live updates throughout the day there. So this is a big election, so I'd encourage everybody to kind of keep up with it. And the reason why it's a big election, the reason why this election is so important is Brexit. If the Conservatives win and Brexit gets done, I'm an American. So as an American, it's really important because we could get a new trade deal with the United Kingdom. Globally, it's important if the UK is the 5th largest economy in the world. So what happens here could have a huge global impact if they stay in the EU or if they leave. So this is really going to set the tone for that. Also, Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour Party, foreign policy wise, would be completely different than historical British leaders. He's not very he's very pro dictator. He has supported people like Fidel Castro in the past. He's kind of a Russian sympathizer. He supported terrorist groups. And this isn't just some propaganda. This is actually, he had members of the IRA go with him to Parliament. He led them to Parliament. So he's an old school commie, if you will. I mean, so Jeremy Corbyn, if he gets in, it would be really bad for a lot of the normalcy that we see in the world right now with somebody with that power there. Or it will definitely be a shift. Also, this election is kind of near and dear to my heart. Where I'm from in America is southwestern Virginia, from the coal fields in the Appalachian Mountains. We've seen the coal areas and the historic labor areas in England slowly become conservative. I witnessed that in America when it went from Democrat to Republican. I live in one of those areas. I've worked in politics in these areas, so it's very interesting to see the shift. And I definitely understand what some of those people are thinking there, and it's definitely a shift. So it will be very interesting. Thank you guys all for watching my video. If you could hit like and subscribe for future content. They're usually not all this long, but we had a lot of information to go over, and there's a big election tomorrow. So thank you guys so much, and have a great day.